In this video, I'm talking about the 3 types of research papers that you can do for me, and I've already covered type 1 in a previous video, which is the information only research paper, the informational paper. And in this video, I want to talk about the persuasive paper. It uses information, but it uses it to make sense of a controversial issue and then to convince the reader one way or the other about some aspect of that controversial issue that aligns with your views. So this is the type of paper that is often taught in high school and in college writing 1 and 2 classes. And it's basically the pro-con paper, or the persuasive paper, the issues paper. It goes under quite a few names. But the notion of it, basically, now it can be more complicated and you can have different variations, but the basic notion is find an issue that right now is a current issue of discussion for our culture or for our society or for our local group, for our state, for our region, for our nation. All right. I think if you go for the world, it's a little too big, but find an issue that is important to a lot of people, and an issue that for which camps or groups of people have sort of clustered and polarized around this issue. Okay, so it is what we would say then a controversial issue, in the sense of the literal notion of the word of being one position, and then for the people that are controverting it, they're flipping that side over to its opposite and arguing for that, and then you have some in the middle, But so you could just basically think of a lot of things. One would be student loans, should they be forgiven across the board, or let's work with universal income. So there are enough places where very smart people with degrees are not finding work. And it's been happening for a certain amount of time, to the point where people are talking about, well, maybe the United States needs to offer a universal income to every head of household or every adult. Just a basic income of $30,000 or $20,000 a year. It might be higher. I don't know. So there are people that are going to say yes to that. That's what we need, right? There are other people that are going to say no way, absolutely not. So for those two sides, I would say there's the yes side, and if you want to picture it, put a yes and an exclamation mark on it, right? And on the opposite side is the no exclamation. These people, it's very clear to them that this is just a bad idea all the way through, or it's a good idea all the way through. All right. Now, between those two, if you want to think of it as a spectrum, between the two are also groups of people. There might be the yes, but group, right? Yes, we should have a universal income, but only for these people, only for this, and they put limitations on it, right? So they're willing to sort of embrace a more complicated view, or a view with more moving parts, if you will. And on the other side might be the no, we shouldn't do this, except for, and then they have exceptions, and they realize that it might be a good idea in some situations, and they're willing to consider that and agree with that. So for the controversial issues, right, out there, the people that are responding to them and writing web articles, magazine articles, doing podcasts, doing YouTube videos, we do a lot of things now in ways of producing texts. I would consider a YouTube video a text, a podcast, because it's recorded, it's replayable, it can be documented. You see what I'm saying? But those are really your 4 camps. They're yes, no, yes, but, no, except for, or no, but. No, comma, but is what I mean. And really those camps, those 4 camps, can be seen around many controversial issues. Well, what I'm getting at is you can do that for this class. You can pick an issue that you've thought about and that you have some opinions about, and that you would like to sort of offer clarification or a solution, or your paper can take the approach of saying this is the right way and this is the wrong way about this issue. But one thing that you have to do with this type of paper is you have to set the stage, right? You have to introduce the issue pretty clearly, and then you have to kind of represent both sides. I know you're going to represent your side with the logic and the information and the reasons that you have for thinking it's the right side, but you also have to represent the other side. So, as you begin this, the staging of this paper is, introduce the topic. And then I think it would probably be a good idea to introduce both sides, right? And then after that, pick a side you agree on, or a version of it. You might actually be in one of those middle camps where it's, yes, I agree mostly with this side, but I do have some thoughts that, I'm not so much, against or for something. There could be cases where I could see the other side's point. Whichever camp you fit in, the second part of your paper is you talking about your opinion, your view on this, why you believe the way you do. And then the way you would end is pretty much kind of, if you can imagine yourself talking to maybe the other side in a civil discussion, okay? And you all are having a good conversation. At the end, you might know that the other side might have some questions for you. And they might have respectfully listened. They might kind of get to see your point or why you believe the way you do. And then but they still might have some questions about, well, what do you think about this? Or really, what exactly was your, how do you deal with this exception or whatever? If you can imagine that happening, then you can close your paper by addressing those, what we call objections or possible refutations or questions, from the other side. So this paper has a nice structure. You can kind of already see, how you should make it and what you should do. Now at this point, you just got to go out and find that issue, learn about it. Maybe you already have it. Maybe you've already been very passionate about something, whether it's animal rights or human rights or gun rights, or it could be all sorts of stuff. Should athletes be paid or not? College athletes. Should there be universal health care in America? That doesn't eliminate private care, but is just there for everyone for basic medical needs. There are all sorts of and so those are very large, okay? But it doesn't have to be that large. It could be something specific too. For example, right now in education, there are a lot of parents that are very concerned about public schools, and they would rather send their schools to some smaller place that maybe is a little more safe or whatnot. I don't know. But so there are very small schools popping up around the nation that are called micro schools. And these micro schools, some of them use AI as the teacher. So, I'm not saying teachers are disappearing quickly, but this is proof of concept that a high school can be run with a facilitator, a couple monitors, and TV screens and artificial intelligence, really showing a student how to do a math equation, how to think about the atom or a chemical reaction for science, how to arrange, how to talk about a certain historical event. I mean, you just go ahead and ask AI and you get the answer. So you can ask, and you might get a video, you might get an infographic. I mean, it's pretty rich. So what I'm trying to illustrate there is the possibility that you might find an issue that's really quite specific. Like, should we have artificial intelligence as teachers in school? Okay. So, there are many, many things I'll take for this. But if you want to go ahead and take this approach, know that, you're going to have to work with your logic and your definitions and your reasoning. I mean, at the end of the day, I just use words that maybe you don't know exactly how to. I don't know. I don't know what your background and your preparation for this is for, but it's really quite simple. There's nothing really mysterious about this. If you hold a position about something, and someone comes to you and says, tell me what you believe and why. Why do you believe that? Would you be able to say, well, this is what I believe, and then here are my reasons? Can you list the reasons more or less? Or can you work with that? Can you work on the reasoning level? And by that I mean, can you just give the reasons why you believe? And can you unpack those reasons? Now if you can do it verbally, that might be a great step for you to sort of work your way into being able to get it written down as a research paper, okay? And then to meet the requirements of this particular assignment for this particular class at this particular university, you're going to have to go find some facts, bring them in, put them somewhere in there, quote once or twice, put a works cited. Hopefully that works organically to strengthen your essay, right? And you're going to have to do that. So that's another aspect that will allow you to satisfy the basic requirements for the writing project of this course. So if you're really comfortable with that approach, and you're not bored to death with it yet, because again, sometimes I have students that they're like, well, I've written the persuasive paper 3 or 4 or 5 times. I'm tired of this. So for them, I would recommend the third option in the next video. But right now, if you're like, whatever, I kind of like that. I kind of like that approach. I'm ready for it. I'll do it. I'm okay with doing the persuasive paper. Then this is something you might consider as your research approach, your research paper. Now it's different from the informational one, the one that I talked about in the previous video, because here you are using information, but then you're using it to try to say to try to really highlight a right or wrong position. You see what I'm saying? So you're using it as one might use Lego blocks. The information itself are just the blocks, but you're using the blocks to kind of build something. You see what I'm saying? Whereas if it's purely informational, you're just kind of presenting the blocks, as blocks in themselves, and just saying, well, here are these bits of information about this topic. But for the persuasive, you're taking those bits of information and you're arranging them. You're using one to build on another, so that you are trying to get your audience to see the rationality, the of your view. That you're trying to get them to see that your view is intellectually respectable, right? And you're using information and data and testimony and logic, to get them to finally recognize that. Now, it is important that you understand. I'm not expecting you to prove your position to anybody. You don't have to feel like you're convincing me. You just have to make your position understood by your audience as being a possible viewpoint, right? At that point, I feel like that's basically all we can do as human beings is we hold beliefs, we hold systems of beliefs, and if we could just get our partners or our the community that's in dialogue with us about this to see the rationalness, the reasonableness of our belief system, then whether or not they commit to it is something else. That the fact that they can see that yes, that is a possible explanation, or yes, that's a possible view, that doesn't mean at all that they're going to embrace that view and have it change them or have it become their policy for action or for conviction, right? But so, I don't know how to get change to happen on that level. I think it's just enough for you to do a really good job explaining that you have a view on something. You think, the opposite view is probably wrong. Don't be afraid of that. That's intellectual honesty. I don't want you to tolerate intellectual contradictions. We need to tolerate people that don't agree with us, but we don't have to tolerate the notion that 2 + 2 is 5. Don't tolerate that. That's just wrong. So you can with respect point out that there are some mistakes on the other side, and you don't see that your side has those mistakes. That's why you believe in your side and you're not on that side. It's a little tricky, but there is a sense there where that is what's happening. And if you could do it in a reasonable way, a respectful way, a calm way, I think that goes a very long way. It's a good thing for a person to be able to do in a society that is becoming volatile and a bit stretched at the fabric is being stretched, and I feel people are sometimes losing patience with each other, and calm dialogue can help restore some mutual understanding among humans, people, about what it means to believe in things and what it means to live together and to be kind to each other. You realize you can be kind to someone even if you don't believe the same things they believe. Kindness just is it's just something you do. It's not something that springs from now kindness is easy when you feel like you are doing it with other people that see the world as the way you do it, but you find you can also be kind to people that don't see the world as the way you see it. Just hold the door for them, or say thank you, or don't raise your voice at them, or all sorts of stuff. We know how to do it. I think down deep inside we really do know how to do this. So well, this is the Persuasive Paper. If you like what you're hearing and maybe want to do the class this way, go for it. Thank you for watching.